Hey everybody, welcome back to number one Leading Ladies. You've got Kaylee McMahon here. Y'all already know me. We've got Leka here today, and I'm really excited to have her on our show. I'm going to have her introduce herself because I won't do her justice, of course. But as you always know, this podcast and this show is about women helping each other to build each other up instead of tear each other down. So that's something that I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about today. But Leka, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
Well, first of all, Kaylee, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you on screen or off. Again, this is Leka Devatha. I am from Seattle, Washington. I've been a real estate investor and broker now for about 6 years, and I started doing fix and flip. And I've done over 40 flips. I have done land subdivisions. I have a bunch of rental properties, and I think the one thing that gives me so much joy through my journey is finding other women in this space and really connecting with them, because as we know, this is a men's world, and to kind of break through and be, on the same playing field as them gives me so much joy and strength, So thank you for having me. This is such a great podcast. I've listened to it.
Oh, really?
Just happy to be a part of it.
That's cool. I hope you got some cool nuggets out of some of them. They're so different, women like yourself who are in real estate, and then we have some women that are not, so I wanted a variety. But, the premise of the show is you already know what's coming, if you've listened to it. I usually just ask a couple of questions. It's more like a phone conversation, like, hey, girl, what's up? But one of the things that, since you have so much experience starting off in real estate, doing more and then doing multiple different things, probably all at once, you probably are saying, okay, let's get a project over here. There's obviously a scaling process from starting off to getting to that point. And so you've had to have some success. And a lot of people think being an entrepreneur is like, oh, you have all your free time. You can do whatever you want. You can make your own schedule. You can go on vacation when you want. And in reality, like I just mentioned, for the last 5 months, I have gone nowhere, just out of guilt, and then being bogged down with things to do. So that's not really reality, I find. And what I do find is reality is there is always a point in the beginning, especially when you're getting started, where, you don't have anything. And you're like, okay, are you Kaylee? And you took it out on your credit cards to get your business started? Or did you live with your parents? Or did you take a HELOC out on your house, second mortgage out? How did you get your business up and going through those, I guess, bootstrapping days, and then get it to the point where you started having traction?
Yeah. Great question. So we took a HELOC on our primary residence. That's how I got started. And we used those funds to really fuel and fund the business. So with those funds, I was able to do one flip. Then I had a little bit of experience. And then I used those same funds to do a smaller flip, which gave me, the ability to scale to 2-3 flips. By the time I did my fourth flip, I was super, I had a little bit more experience, and I was super confident to go out and then raise money. My biggest thing was I didn't want to raise money and then fail miserably and not give someone their expected return, or not have the ability to pay them back. That was my biggest nightmare, and I would never let that happen. So I waited for a few different deals. I waited to see that, I could actually do this, because my first flip didn't make me any money.
Yeah.
But whereas flip 2, 3, and 4 made me a lot of money. So I was like, okay, now I really do have, that little nest egg, and also the confidence to go out and go make, use of other people's money. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I got started. And honestly, if I didn't have the ability to raise private money, I would never be able to scale. At one point, I was doing 8 deals. And in my area, a deal could cost anywhere between $800 to $1 million. So having the ability to do 8 deals only came from the ability to raise money.
Yeah, so, that's great. Now, when you raise private capital from individuals, there's so many different ways that different types of businesses do that, whether it's real estate, whether it's tech, whatnot. And how did you learn the process of knowing how to pitch your deals, or have a professional presentation, or be able to make projections on what you were doing? A lot of it with flips, is experience, saying, okay, well, here's an itemized list of every doorknob, every nail, what it's going to cost. Here's some comps. Is that part of it, or is there a lot more to it?
I started raising money from friends.
Yeah.
Friends that kind of not even our like family friends, but friends that were in the business that I had gotten to know from the beginning of starting my whole flipping career. People that were like part of my network that kind of saw the way that I hustled, but weren't able to do the same on their own projects. So there they were, like, not being able to succeed in their projects, but then they had all the money, all the capital. So that's how I got started, was raising money from those people that weren't able to succeed on their own, but then gave me their money and watched their money grow through me. Cool. And once I was able to do that, I think I was able to then, go out more confidently and say, okay, I just borrowed someone's $100,000 and I made them 130, and I gave them a 30K profit within 8 months. And that's powerful. Like if you can do that on just like a small deal, that's really powerful. So then going into now finding people that I didn't know, but I was like building a relationship with, I did have to have presentations. I did have to have like good track record to show them. But the cool thing is with a flip and doing as many flips that I had done, I could actually show them before after photos. I could tell them the timelines that I had achieved these amazing, remarkable remodels in. And that kind of gave them the confidence that, I'm not someone that's just going to do one flip and then go, I don't know, disappear. So I kind of, I started small. I started with people that knew me really well, and then went on to raise money from people I didn't know at all.
Right. So does that take, like, for us to do work with accredited individuals?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay. Same thing. Yeah,
exactly. Okay. Same thing.
Cool. And then for y'all that are listening, that maybe if I haven't covered this, I use the 1, 2, 3 rule for accredited. There's many other sub rules, like if you're a S Corp, C Corp, fund, etc. But $1 million net is your net worth minus your primary residence. 2, you make $200,000 for 2 consecutive years and reasonably expect yourself to continue doing that as a single person. And then $300,000 for 2 years, and you reasonably consider yourself to continue that as a couple. And there's more, but that's generally like the 1, 2, 3 rule that we use. So just to make sure that everyone that might be tuning in for the first time is like, what is that? Because people will say like, oh, I'm not sophisticated. And it's actually like, well, actually the accredited person is the one that's more wealthy. The sophisticated person just has substantial knowledge, really, to understand the risks.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they're like, oh, okay. Awesome. That's great. And that's great that you had close people, family, and friends that, wanted to invest with you. Now, people always see that progress of getting started. I think they don't usually see things until you get some motion. There's always like that beginning stage. And there's learning stages during those beginning stages, like, with your first flip not making any money. For me, I was really close to that on my first flip, same thing. But I got really lucky. I found someone to rent it who was with a huge corporation, and they paid for everything. And so even if he left, it would still be covered. So I was like, well, sure, I guess you can stay here till the market's good, and I may try to sell or finance it. But anyway, like, there's so much that you learn, and I'm still freaking learning every week, like right now even. When you're going through the process of learning, and you're probably still learning as we go, what would you say has probably been your biggest lesson so far?
Oh my Lord. I think it's that, you're absolutely right, because you learn something every day. Every project, you classify fix and flip or like multifamily investing into one bucket, but then with every deal comes so many different learnings, right? So I think my honestly biggest, also most profitable learning has been to really sit down and evaluate different exit strategies. I think once I started to do that and pay more attention to what this building could really be, that just opened up so many doors. Like, I started doing more with one deal. Rather than doing 8, 10 deals, I could do one deal and just be so much more profitable.
Yeah.
Right? And just like own that building instead of fixing and flipping. I could actually own this building if I just knew creative exit strategies that I could use to pull that out. So yeah, that's been my biggest go-to.
When do you think that you learned that lesson? Early on, or kind of closer to now? That different exits.
I started investing in 2014. So I think there was a property that I did in 2015 that came on historical lot lines. And so that was the first time that I was like, okay, maybe I should look at it differently. Like, instead of just flipping a house and selling it, what else could I do with this lot? Because this lot was so massive. And that's when I started saying, okay, let me look at, like, can I build another house? Can I sell off the land as a different parcel? And that kind of showed me that there were so many things you could do. And now in Seattle too, there is like a new law where you can put a whole detached dwelling unit behind your property.
Mother-in-law?
Just to increase, like a mother-in-law or dad who are ADU, to be able to increase density in the city, because there's no real estate, there's no inventory. So that's another like huge factor too, is that there's so many things that the city is always changing rules.
Yeah.
So just keep up to date with it. And so that way you can kind of come up with different strategies as the years go on.
That's actually super key. I was asking you kind of when abouts in your timeline that you learned that, just because right now it's awesome to have multiple exit strategies. Like, for example, I've got some friends that are doing a syndication right now on an apartment deal in Houston. And I mean, it's the perfect deal. Like I mentioned earlier, trying to have a neighborhood or an environment that's 1 or 2 classes higher. It's the only B-class vintage left in that area of Houston.
Houston Galleria?
Yep. Yeah.
You get Ashley's?
Yep. You know which one it is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Anna's on that one too. So we were talking about that, and then the rent bumps are huge. But, just for the fact that they have like 3 exit strategies plus probably another one, we always have the, flip strategy, like, refi and or sell. So you have those 3 always. And then now it's okay. Now we can convert some, if not all, to condos. Now we can possibly look at the rebuild cost. And based on the fact that everything around it is 100% brand new A-class.
Yes.
Long story short, there's like several exit strategies. So for me as an investor, that would be where I'd be comfortable, because it's like, I mean, literally we can pivot this way, that way, that way, that way. So I think knowing that kind of stuff as far as being creative when you exit is, you're exactly right. That's a huge lesson.
Yeah.
So you're going to be someone that people can rely on during a downturn, because you can get creative. Exactly. Yeah. And so you can.
And if anything, like the pandemic needs to teach us all, right? Like that you have to be able to pivot, shift, change your strategy as quickly as you possibly can.
True.
So not to fail.
Yeah, exactly. So that is a wonderful lesson. And I hope everybody out there, like you said, you have to kind of slow down to really be in depth and to think through those things. And sometimes, like for me, I ask older people that have done things before, and then they've probably had to pivot. Someone's done it before, so I'll ask them to, or someone like yourself. Like, well, what do you mean with pivot? How do I do that? So that's a great lesson. Now, also through that learning process and starting your business and having the lessons too, there's also wins that we get to have. What would you say, period, has been your biggest win?
Oh, wow. So I was, I bought a house to fix and flip in 2017. And through the very first week of owning this property, I figured out that I was able to subdivide my lots. Again, it goes back to land subdivision, but it is the truth. I was able to successfully, it took me 3 years, and literally last month, I was able to successfully record 3 lots with the county.
Wow.
So I have an existing house, a beautiful house that I remodeled in 2017 on one of the lots. And then I have 2 additional lots that I can sell off to a builder or an end user to build like a custom home on it. Homes in that neighborhood sell for 1.5 to 1.6 for a 4,000 square foot home.
Wow.
So I could essentially sell my lots for $500K a piece and sell the home for $1 million. I bought this entire package for $570. And I put in like about $500,000 to like fix up the house and subdivide the lots. But that has just been my biggest win. It took me 3 good years. But at the end of it, it was just like, I came out of it feeling like, wow, this is something,
No.
If I could do that, then I can do anything.
That's freaking awesome. And why my eyes are getting so huge is because what that buys in Texas, I'm going, oh my Lord, like you could literally, for one of those houses, you could buy an apartment. Like, I'm not kidding. Like one of my first smaller ones, 24 units. 24 units was $547. Yeah.
No way. So we were doing some research because I just went under contract with a 4-unit in a submarket in Seattle.
Yeah.
For $625.
Yeah.
For a 4-unit. Yeah. And this is, like, I would say a C-class neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And so we were doing the research, and the cheapest multifamily in all of King County, which is where I live, sold for, and this was a triplex, the lowest one sold for $725. So getting a 4-plex for $625 is huge.
That's so funny.
But it's so much money.
Yeah.
So,
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I'm going price per door. Dang.
I know.
I feel spoiled. Well, some of the stuff here is kind of hard to contend with because I'm used to buying stuff in the wake of 09 or 08, afterwards you're buying stuff kind of how I got these at like $21K a door with all renovations included, super cheap. But now you're looking at stuff that's between 74 and like 115 depending on a lot of variety of factors. So that's really hard to swallow. But then if I look
that includes rehab?
Yeah. But
oh my God.
But if I look on the coast and things, like how bad New York has gotten, how bad LA's gotten, that kind of thing, I'm going, I don't know. Like, is it going to get that bad here? I believe yes in Austin. That's why I'm actually willing to overpay for a few things in Austin. Because everyone that is coming in from those cities, they're willing to pay. They're thinking like I just thought, oh my God, this is so cheap,
Exactly. And Austin is amazing.
Yeah.
Austin's just the place to be.
Yeah. And it was projected before COVID to grow. So Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, they're all going to be growing, but closer to your regular inflation rate. So about 2% per year. And that was projected year over year to grow at 2.24% at minimum in Austin. And that was before COVID. But Austin is education-based, it's tech-based, Tesla's moving there, their biggest factory in the United States is going to be there, and there's many other, Apple, et cetera. So it's not going to stop growing. So I just wish I lived there so I could do what I do here and go running and be like, okay, like let's skip trace that owner because I know this neighborhood really well, stuff like that. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know. I just bought a building close to, Seattle downtown has Amazon and Facebook and Google. So I just bought a building there that is totally run down for $1.2 million. And that was 6 months ago. And that building today is worth about 1.6.
Whoa.
So the appreciation factor is crazy, even through COVID. And we're talking 4 doors, Kaylee. Wow. 4 doors for 1.2. So crazy.
Now that building, is it more of like an office building where you'd have a single tenant, or how does that work?
No, it's just a residential multifamily.
Okay.
It's a 4-unit building, which I'm going to completely strip down to the studs in a year and put in like at least 250, 300K of rehab and raise the building's value to about $2 million.
Wow. That's awesome. But yeah, that real estate, is key as far as the location.
Location. Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I mentioned with the stuff now, as far as looking at apartments, that's probably the biggest thing is like going, okay, you can have a few nice things, but like in that neighborhood, what class of a neighborhood is it? What's the crime rate? it needs to be higher. So like I mentioned, it would be okay to, overpay or be close to it for something that, like the middle of Dallas, like the middle of, exactly. Austin.
Exactly.
Yeah. So those were really like the 3 questions that I ask all of our guests. We have a little bit of time here, if that's okay. We have another like 3 minutes or so. Or actually, we have more than that, but about another 7 minutes. But so, is there anything that if the audience were to ask you, what message do you want to share, or something that you want to ask from our audience, what would those be?
I am always willing, happily to give my time to anyone that wants to get started in investing. I know when I first started, like having a good mentor or like someone that I could follow, a good leader that actually has a proven track record, that was like hard to find. So I would say that I've had some success with, everything that I've done, that I'm happy and willing to share that knowledge with anybody that's interested. With the audience, what I would say is, hey, like I'm always looking for amazing rental properties. So if you have something that you see, 2 to 4 unit multifamilies, even like 8 units and under, I am not a Kaylee. I don't buy like 50, 100,000 units, but smaller multifamily, I'm your girl.
Yeah. Perfect.
And I do want to say one thing.
Yeah.
So, Ashley Wilson, we spoke about her.
She is operations badass.
Yeah, badass.
Hey, that's my dog. You can't see her because I have this cool screen behind me.
So the Invest Her community is putting out a book. And what they're doing is called The Only Woman in the Room book for real estate investing. So they curated 20 women from across the country to write a chapter each. And so that book is being published in a couple months.
That's exciting.
So watch out for that. That's going to be a crazy awesome book because it's got incredible people. I wrote a chapter myself.
Woo!
I'm really excited, but that book's coming out soon and now we can talk about it. We're not allowed to talk about it all these months, but it's coming out and I'm excited and we can share that knowledge. And so watch out for that one.
Is it going to be available on Amazon?
It probably will be.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Seriously, like, I'm very proud of you. I recently had Ashley connect me with Liz. So Liz and I have a call on Thursday because I've got this app that I'm coming out with, which is meant to teach women about cash flowing real estate. So across all asset classes, it doesn't matter if it's mobile home parks, if it's whatever, it doesn't matter. But if it makes cash flow, I want it in there. So you can find what you like. And then, so they were interested in that because they're like, oh, that's cool to put technology with, us educating more women. And the way we're going to do things is by doing it together. You know what I mean? You can't all have your own thing. You kind of need to put your heads together. And I was also envisioning in that app to have an area where we would have like a biannual women's, not mastermind, not retreat, but just basically, like, for me, it was like my soulmate people to physically get together. And it wasn't even that we really had to have an agenda or meetings or anything business at all. It would just obviously come up, but it's more of a retreat to get away and be able to, like, I don't know, go kite surf or lay in a hammock, or like me, just put your face in the sand for a couple of days, you know what I mean? And be able to get your mental health back because it's so key. And then be able to surround yourself with those people who are just like you. And they had already thought of that idea. So they're already kind of putting something together like that. So again, we want to brainstorm on, okay, well, how can I reach out this way, you reach out that way, and we can put it together to affect more lives. I mean, I'm not going to get to 1 billion female investors in 10 years unless I have help, from other people. So I'm excited.
I'm down. If you need me for that, I'm in. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally up my alley.
Yeah, and you're already involved with them, so that would be really helpful, actually. Yeah. Awesome. I'm excited.
Awesome.
Yes.
I'm excited too.
Let's see. Anything else? Because you've shared a lot of really good gold nuggets. I'm going to have to add in these little cartoons later with little nuggets dropping.
I love that.
If somebody were to contact you, what would be the best way to get a hold of you? And if they were interested, for example, in learning about getting started doing 2 units, 3, 4 units, what exactly you do, how do you handle that, and how can they get a hold of you?
Okay, so you can find me on LinkedIn. My first and my last name, Leka Devatha. And then just send me a message, and what we could do is either set up a Zoom call or a quick phone call, kind of like an introductory, discovery call, and then we can go from there. And I can walk you through some of my projects, how I got started investing in multifamily, or how I made the switch from single family fix and flip to rentals even, and BRRRRs and multifamily. Happy to, share that with anybody. So yeah, just find me on LinkedIn and send me a message. That's the best way. Does
that work if somebody is local and not local, or is it better if someone's local in Seattle?
Oh, it works. This has, this whole pandemic has taught us that you can be anywhere in the world and you can connect, which is so amazing. So yeah, anywhere, just, a Zoom call should handle that. If you are local, I'd love to walk you through some of my projects. So that just works, but yeah, doesn't matter where you are.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so if y'all want to get a hold of Leka, just hit her up on LinkedIn, the professional place where professionals hang out, I like to say. And again, thank you guys guys and gals for tuning into Number One Leading Ladies. You'll hear us again next week on the podcast. And if you have any questions for Leka, she just told us how we can reach out to her. I'll see y'all next week on Number One Leading Ladies. Thank you, guys.